Right, so the next thing on the agenda is 441 Glen Road.
Do you want to take something on for Steve, representative from the Cambridge schools here?
We could do that.
Send her home a little earlier.
Sure, especially because there's no one from Glen Road here, sure.
Oh, you'd probably stay anyway
Oh,
for
I
your favorite.
The order doesn't even matter, does it?
So this is
I
the
do
one we
love
haven't
how-
quite seen yet, right?
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So the version, Betsy, that you gave us, does it include Al's changes?
Thanks, Steve.
I need to make, I have to go back and double check.
Wait a minute, so Al did some changes on this?
Al did some changes, but I'm not sure I captured them all.
Yeah, they're not captured, I can tell you that right now.
I had like 3 people emailing me different versions, so it kind of got a little crazy.
Yeah, I can tell, because I marked up Al's version, and I can tell that it's different.
So what does that mean for us? Can we vote on this?
Well, I don't know.
Well, can we go through, can you
He was
identify the
made-
changes and we can?
Yeah, well, it's not that easy because Al didn't use track changes for his changes. But I can do my best if you want me to, if I find the difference between the two.
Are we looking right now at the site plan changes or the earth removal? Which one are we talking about first?
Well,
Amendment, why don't we do the amendment?
Okay, thank you.
amendment first, okay.
Are we starting with Cambridge School? Is that,
Yes.
we're done, okay.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong
So Cambridge School, I think, other than grammar, the bulk, I ended up getting some changes from Sherry Lewis. And then conditions, I had worked on, and so the bulk of the condition changes were in page 7.
Okay, well, this one didn't have Al's comments on it anyway. It is 441 Glen.
Oh.
But I haven't read this. Has anyone else read this?
I haven't read this
Well, I
one.
guess we
The
need to
Cambridge
read it.
School?
Yeah.
Sit here now.
And you didn't do the italics thing here. Is that 'cause the whole thing is?
No, I did not, because the whole thing is new.
So can we assume that all the background and authority with all the information submitted is the same? Nothing's changed there? Is that just copy and paste from the original
No,
decision?
no, they
It isn't?
submitted a whole new round of plans,
Okay,
which are all referenced on page 2, the information submitted to the board.
okay.
So that's a whole new set, so that goes through to page 5.
Right, so that's 28.
Yep.
What do we do with those?
What are you talking
I mean, these guys, do we read each one of these? I can't remember seeing them. I mean, I never saw them. We would never see them.
So we showed them last time, and I think the substantive changes had to do with slightly moving a sidewalk, moving a little bit of landscaping. There was
So we're
nothing,
really looking at the discussion right now for accuracy, right?
Correct.
Is it really purple love grass?
Yes,
Double
that's
check.
what it is.
Purple love grass. Never heard of that.
The landscape architect consultant was here and was happy with what we had chosen.
Right, yeah, no, I knew that. I was just questioning, like, was it really perfect low grass or something
Yeah, but
like
it's-
that? I was just for accuracy.
I think what Sue was asking is if we don't need to read the 28 plans listed, because we don't know if they're right or not anyway.
Right.
On pages 2, 3, 4,
Right,
and
right,
5.
right.
So I'm taking that on face value that you've got them all.
They're all
And
there.
that
They've all been reviewed.
And but are these, shouldn't these just be the revised ones? Because I see dates of January 27, 2011.
I had Sharon Lewis look at this, and they submitted an entire package which included resubmission of 1, 2, I think it was 3. Those 3 were resubmitted.
The ones dated 2011.
Yeah,
So that is the correct date.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm not seeing, can you reference which, I don't,
On
Page
page
2.
2,
Yep.
1, 2, and
the
3.
plans, 1, 2, and 3.
those are not 2011. Are they? Okay, yeah, okay.
I mean,
Yep.
that was 4 years ago.
Yep.
It certainly is a long time before this project ever.
Yep.
But maybe it's because it was a survey.
Survey.
It's a survey, yeah.
I guess so. Well, because they don't have the report right now.
Hmm?
So under 5, Betsy, I assume that that's.
Can we read this first?
I
And
just
then,
read it.
no, can we read the whole thing
Oh.
and then go through it? Because otherwise it's really hard to read it and have people
Sure,
talking.
okay, I get it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure.
You can-
Been like a dry hacking cough to drive you insane. No, it's okay, I just feel sorry for you, you're so tired.
Has everyone finished the limited site plan approval? Or let me know when you have.
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. Anyone have any changes on page 1?
Nope.
Pages 2 through 4, or 2 through 5, I should say. Anyone? Page 6,
My question is, our standard is usually one average foot candle.
correct.
And it's the same 1.25. I don't recall the discussion specifically about average foot candle. I thought we were actually below the threshold, but it's.
Well,
appears that
we
we're
are,
above.
Right up above it says 0.5 foot candles average on site.
Yeah.
Well, then you need to change that to 1.0 because that's
Okay.
our
All right.
standard.
Okay,
So I see it up above, resulted
Yeah.
in 0.5 foot candles average on the site.
Mhm.
Okay.
Also, in that same paragraph up above that has the 0.5 foot candles, the third line, Turner stated that the landscaping changes were sufficient. I think you probably mean were acceptable. Anyone have anything else on page 6? Okay, page 7.
Yeah, under 7, it's 500 feet.
Yeah, I have lots of questions on this same 441. Like, is that really 500 or is it 400 like we
Right.
talk about in other decisions? Or is it 500 for drilling where the 400 is for blasting?
Mhm.
The sense that I had was the nearest butter was a good deal beyond 500 feet, is that correct?
We're on the
We're on page
7 of the
8.
site plan.
Yep,
Correct.
I'm on page 7 of 7.
7.
7 of 8.
I think those are two different things mixed together.
Our package is for,
Okay.
you might be looking at the wrong one.
No, I was looking at the limited site plan
Okay.
review amendments, now I'm looking at earth blasting if we've changed.
No, we're looking at limited site plan review. Page 7 of 8.
The COA.
The label is certificate of action amendment.
I just want to make sure we're right, I printed them out and collated them, and so mine, and
You
I
might be looking at a different version. I don't know which version, Betsy.
Did,
have the latest versions that Shara sent you to track changes.
okay, then there was one after that.
Okay,
Yeah,
we haven't
we got
seen
one in
any
the
condition or
pile.
anything.
Here.
We've got
Well,
one
I
we can
sent
probably
them to
give you.
Shara.
We've got one here.
I'm looking at a packet right now, I want to make sure I'm looking at the same thing, because the one I'm
Sure.
looking at only has 7
Yeah,
pages,
it says 8.
and the other decision only has 8 pages.
Do you want to go back over the changes so that she can mark up her copy?
Sure.
No, I'm good,
Okay.
Oh,
good so far.
sorry about that.
By the way, Betsy, the first
And we
5.
never saw these conditions.
Well, they were sent to Shara this afternoon.
Okay. I mean, I think it's really challenging when we haven't had a chance to look at them. As of 6 o'clock, she hadn't received these conditions. So let me read them now, because it's the first
So-
one I'm seeing them.
Betsy, the first 5 pages don't have what the remaining pages do, which is like page 1 of 8, page 2 of 8. The footer at the bottom of the first 5
Yeah,
pages
that
is
would be nice
different
to
than the
have.
footer at the bottom of 7 and 8.
Oh, okay.
Minor thing, but just thought I'd mention it. So while she's reading that, we can talk about the blasting. So, well, for one thing, didn't we talk maybe about a wider radius?
Yes.
For this of like
We-
1,000
we
feet?
offer-
You
For
volunteered
1,000.
again.
Right,
Yeah,
yep, we're gonna provide notification.
okay, so we've got to change that to 1,000 feet.
I mean, that's not a
Wait,
condition, that's an
there was,
offer.
the offer was made for 1,000 feet for blasting.
No, right, for blasting.
So what, you don't think it would be 1,000 feet for hammer drilling? You think it would be less?
What I did was I looked at all the other conditions of various blasting approvals.
Right.
So I looked at
253.
253.
Residential,
Yeah, I looked at, it was predominantly all residential.
yeah.
There were 2 properties on Lexington Street. There were a bunch of properties on Meadowbrook. Where else did I look?
Okay,
I looked
doesn't
at,
matter.
I looked at probably 8 or 10.
Mhm.
And most had a provision for the hammer drilling that it was 400 to 500 feet, and it varied.
Well,
So, which is why I put the lesser amount there.
well, the 1,000 feet isn't even in 6.
Right.
And also in 6, and I have the same comments on 441, there's nothing about a pre-blast survey being conducted. That's where it should say a pre-blast
Right,
survey
they're
will be
not doing a
conducted.
pre-blast
There's no one
survey.
within
Oh, there's
250.
not within that one, okay. So then, you want to say the impacted providers, starting with line 4, within 1,000 feet of the site will be provided with a copy of the blasting schedule?
Right.
I think that affects only one person, is that right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think what we talked about last time is that we would, well, we're gonna share the blasting schedule
Yep.
with the members.
So within 1,000 feet of the site will be provided with a copy of the blasting schedule, and then is it notified no less than 72, or is it 48?
This originally, the original one that went out said 48, but then all the ones I looked at said 72.
Okay, so you can do that, but then don't we want to say something like, in addition, notice should involve knocking on doors the day before blasting, something you had in?
Then we're not gonna wanna go 1,000 feet if it's knocking on doors. Because we're notifying as a courtesy of 1,000, but there's a lot of doors within 1,000.
Okay, well, what kind of continued communication do we want to have?
If Erica was here, Erica would tell you that we are good communicators and that we're gonna provide,
Eric Saunders.
yes, that we will provide, as we did with other jobs, whatever's reasonable. We can do weekly updates of what our schedule's going to be.
What's interesting and is that a lot of communities that have a fair amount of blasting put something on the town website. So that's something that we might want to consider once the blasting schedules get finalized.
Okay, but that's not solving this particular
Right.
issue. I think we have to decide whether one notice 72 hours in advance of abutters within 1,000 feet of the site is sufficient. Or if we want to add, like you would in a residential area, additional notifications, the day before, and continued communication, which is what's required for Glen Road, for example.
So when you blast, are you going to be blasting just, you're going to start and just continue on? Or will there be lulls in the blasting?
I think the problem is that they don't know what's going to be blasted until they see
Right.
it.
Right.
So, my understanding just of what the blasting that goes around our neighborhood all the time is you can't constantly blast, there is a blast.
It lasts for like a week and then you have to remove it and.
Right, or even I believe when we did the Garthway building, there was a specific schedule of what time blasting was occurring each day, if I recall. That was about 6 years ago, but I remember.
And how was that issued to the neighborhood?
I believe we did, I would assume we emailed the neighbors.
Well, there's only one abutter within 1,000 feet, right?
No, there's,
You sure
I
about
thought
that?
that's what you said.
I know I said that, but I was guessing.
I can get the map.
when we had the map out, I thought there was a couple of, no, because the Kendall Common folks are probably fine in the,
Because we're talking about the blast site specifically.
that, yeah.
Right. And I remember, I thought there was only one abutter that was within 1,000 feet.
You might be right, actually.
So why wouldn't you be willing to knock on their door a day before the blasting? Why is that so
If that's a
onerous?
condition that is normally put in there.
It is.
Then if it's, I guess I want to see the,
Well, the 1,000 feet is,
I mean, but then,
I understand what you're saying.
then I'd like to go back to what's the required. I feel like we're
Understood.
a little bit of push-pull here. We're required to do it within 500. I don't have the maps.
Sounds
with
like
me.
Mission Creek to
Pardon?
But
Sounds
wait a
like
minute, we're
mission
only
creep.
talking, the reason we increased it to 1,000 is because there weren't any abutters within 500.
And now you're adding conditions that.
We're not adding conditions, these are conditions we do for everyone.
No, but you don't do it within 1,000 feet for everybody.
But again, you have fewer abutters within 1,000 feet than most people have within 500 feet, and they're willing to notify their abutters by
I guess
knocking on the door the day before.
sure,
So I
Jonathan,
don't know
but
why
not
we're
gonna-
having this conversation.
Because I think what I'm a little bit frustrated by is, we have not seen these conditions, and as of like 5 o'clock, I have not seen the
Well,
conditions.
do you want to just, we
No,
could
I want
always
to-
postpone this for 2 weeks.
No, I'd like to, if Betsy has the map, I'd like to see the map. If it's knocking on the door, we're happy to knock on the door, we can't ensure that someone's home, so I'm not sure how, within the hours, our school hours of 8 to 4, we can go if you'd like us to put a notice on their door, we're happy to put a notice on their door. I just don't know how we're gonna ensure that we
Right.
can reach someone at home.
I mean, honestly, I don't know what,
This is the first time I've read this. Is that A-Lot stated there should be a 48-hour notice, and that notice, and this is to do with another area.
Right.
Should involve knocking on the doors the day before the blasting and continued
what
communication.
does 253 Meadowbrook say say, it seems like we should be doing the exact same thing. I feel like we're reinventing the wheel, but
Anyway, we can,
Well,
in
I
short,
Sure,
moving on.
we were
to
happy
just
to knock on the door. We're happy to put notice,
Put a notice on
put
the
a
door.
notice on the door, sure.
Knock and leave the notice.
Yeah, we're happy to, yeah.
So there
I mean,
is just one house.
we talked about 253 ad nauseum, and I would think that whatever was written for 253 is our new standard. And that would be the best place to get the wording.
Understood. The only wrinkle in this is that they're doubling the
Right,
distance.
right, but
Right,
But
exactly.
they have fewer.
I get it.
Yeah. That'll teach them to ever offer to do it out to
Oh,
1,000
yeah.
feet. That'll
Forget
teach you.
me.
Yeah.
You'll
I mean,
know in the
if-
future.
if we had-
Don't volunteer anything.
If we hadn't all agreed to 1,000 feet, that would be a different story.
All right, but the agreement is, but then that has to be added, because I don't see that language of notification will be given at the door.
Right, so we have to add, so, what do you want to
Notice will
say?
be by letter or by email when email addresses are available.
Sounds good.
Isn't that what it
I
says
think
at the
that's fine.
bottom?
I think that's fine.
I
Except that we have in
hate to
Glen
be 20th
Road.
century about this, but, you know, not everyone checks their email all the time. I kind of liked her idea of putting a notice on the front door if no one's
Okay,
home.
how-
knocking
okay, so
on
how
the
about
door.
letter,
What is
comma,
positive and confirmed
notice on
communication?
door, on front door?
I would say notice should involve knocking on doors and leaving a notice if no one's home.
This is what we say in Glen Road. It's 48-hour
Yeah.
notice, and that notice should involve knocking on the doors during the day before the blasting and continue.
The blasting can, so is that every time we blast or before we begin blasting for the first time?
It's
Every
looking to
time
me
we
like it's every
blast.
time you're gonna do a blast. Except if you're gonna blast for a solid week, daily, I mean, couldn't you just do the notices like, you know, we're gonna blast this week, March 23rd through
Yeah,
March
maybe give them a
20th?
blasting
Yeah,
schedule.
Yeah,
That's what
That's
that's
what
all we're
like
talking
blasting
about, yeah, I
schedule.
mean, it does sound absolutely onerous that every day
Yeah.
you have to go
Yeah,
out there and
I
knock
agree.
and
Bla-
leave before.
I'm in favor of just a blast,
Let's
a
get-
blasting schedule.
Mm.
But the point also is, of course, they don't know what they're going to discover until they start blasting. So it could be, it's relatively small, or it could be relatively big.
Obviously, there's a change in the schedule, and it's a new notice.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. Change in
Well,
schedule.
but I think if they knew they were gonna blast for, say, 2 weeks at a whack,
Yeah.
they could
That's
say,
it.
they
Right.
could say,
Yes,
you know.
correct.
Because the
If they
point
were
is-
continuous,
That's
That's
right.
yes.
that's one notice.
The point is people know what
Right.
to expect.
Yep.
Right.
As Al said, continued communication. People just hate surprises. All right, so that's cool. We're done with that?
Well-
You're coming up with language for it?
Have we just, is it going to involve knocking and leaving a note or not? And what is continued communication? Is that via email?
Or if there's a big,
I wish Al were here because he would know exactly what
we want
has
it.
been done and what's been done in the past.
But what was done at Broken Stone?
Oh,
Is there any record of that?
It's all going to be territory.
I'm sure there
It's
is.
gotten much more.
That's a
That was-
commercial
That was
building.
before computer.
253, I think.
It was
is
like
the
3
best
years
That
ago.
was, that was the
example.
most recent one where we had.
The most thorough, yeah.
Because prior to that, for blasting, it was just like, yeah, whatever the fire department says. You know, we
Well,
really
it was
didn't
under-
address
it
it
was
very much at all.
Under state regs, yeah.
Yeah, it was just went to state regulations, right, and then it was 253 Meadowbrook. I'm sitting here, Steve, and I'm starting to cough.
Well, the
Okay.
language on 253 Meadowbrook is not as detailed as this.
Right, so it just seems to assume a life of its own where it's getting really, and you are absolutely right, we need some boilerplate about this so that we don't do this to people. You know,
Well,
yeah.
based on this and Glen Road,
Mhm.
this is the boilerplate,
Okay,
or
good.
close to it.
Which, that's, my next thing is down on number 10. It says Glen Road.
Yeah, it should be changed to
Right.
Lexington Street.
So, okay. Lexington? Yeah.
And in number 6, you have a question, does the board want a representative on site during weekly visits? This
No.
has been done in the past?
No.
Okay, so we can just cross that out.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not really clear what the wording is. I hate to beat a dead horse, but are we just going to leave it
Notice-
vague and, or do you want to read what you think it is?
Notice will be by knocking on doors, providing written notice, letter or by email, when email addresses are available.
And what about continued communication via email?
I can add that.
And you need to say knocking on door the day before.
48 hours before it turns out.
Well, I thought that we're notifying them 72 and then knocking on the door the day before.
Well,
No?
that's not what it says.
Because 72 is better than 48.
I don't know, I would forget it back
Mhm.
Well, that's why you knock on the door.
You took
It's
the
just like-
words out of my
I know.
mouth.
God, you know, can we
All right.
move on from this?
Yeah.
All right, it's going to be 72 then. That's what's there.
Okay.
Okay, anyone have anything else on page 7? Page 8? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the executive action for limited site plan approval for 51 Georgian?
So moved with modifications.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And we do have a quorum,
It's 4.
even though Al's not here.
All right, shall we read the special permit for earth movement?
Have you got that?
I do have
Does the special permit need? We have 4. We have 4 votes.
And everyone say when you're finished reading.
Okay.
so we know.
I've read it, but I'll read it again.
Hmm? Yeah, some of those have to be changed. It was, Shara made some changes. So, what paragraph?
Page 2, bottom.
Yeah,
I think that's correct, but otherwise.
that was a Shara change.
I'm sure.
Shara was the project manager.
ask a question while we're waiting?
Hmm?
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, when was it determined that the hearing was going to be closed? That there would be no further driveway expansion discussion? Because, do you know when that was determined?
I think it was today.
What-
And basically what has been determined is that we're still getting input in from our consultants.
Okay, so you guys knew the hearing wasn't going to happen today, before the hearing?
Well, Al ended up talking with people. I didn't know until like later on this afternoon.
I didn't know until I got there.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know until this happened.
So who was he able to reach out to? Because I think that it would be nice to have a better line of communication with people who have an interest in the topic, because I think he might have reached out to some people, but a lot of people didn't know about it. And I think it would just be nice if,
Yeah, there were a number of people, obviously, that showed up for that.
yeah, they weren't told, but some people apparently were. So I'm just trying to understand who was told.
Nobody was told before the meeting started.
Okay, so no one knew before the
Okay,
meeting
excuse me,
started.
but Steve and Roy are still trying to read this.
review of the special permit for earth movement. Anyone have any changes on page 1?
Yeah, under 1, I didn't understand, okay, under decision, Roman numeral 1, in the middle of the paragraph, it says, "The land is future described in a certificate of title."
Further.
Thank you.
Good catch. Okay, page 2.
Last paragraph, middle of the paragraph, misspelling of Adelot.
Yeah. First paragraph, middle of that paragraph, Jerry indicated,
Mhm.
should be Burke.
Okay.
Also, and I'll talk about it later, but that's the paragraph where you're talking about the pre-blast surveys and the 1,000 feet, and I'm wondering why those conditions, we can talk about it now, are in the COA rather than in the earth removal agreement. In other words, the conditions that we spent so much time talking about, 6 through 10, in the certificate of action, I don't see why they shouldn't be moved to the special permit.
Because I was told by Al to move them to the site.
Well, I think he was talking about 441 Glen. He wasn't talking about 51.
I'm more than happy to move, you've already voted them, but I'm more than happy to move them to the earth movement plan, because that's where they were initially.
Because, I mean, the COA, well, initially, I think you had them as a separate document. That was the
I have them as a
confusion.
separate document, but they were the conditions of the special permit.
Right, well, I know I was specifically talking about 441, so I don't know if this,
But it's,
this might be different, but,
these are usually in, I mean, these kind of things are usually in
the blasting,
the blasting's usually in there.
in
This
what's
is-
there, the certificate of action.
Yeah, the second part is just for the earth movement. You wouldn't have the blasting stuff in that.
Well, then, I don't know, would it make sense to move that paragraph where you talk about all that? You know, the paragraph at the top of page 2 that starts at the bottom of page 1. Would it make sense to move that paragraph to certificate of action? Or should we just leave it?
I think we should just leave it.
Say that one more time. I'm not
Well,
sure I'm following.
this paragraph,
Yeah.
It starts on page 1 and goes to page 2.
Yeah.
all about blasting and notifying
Yeah,
the abutters 1,000 feet away and all that kind of stuff.
right.
And then all the conditions for that are in a different
Oh, I see what you're saying.
agreement.
Right.
Maybe if we just move that paragraph to the certificate of action, that would make more
I
sense.
think that this, I think it may at some point in the future, we should figure that out and have our boilerplate language on it. I think that in this case, these two, documents go hand in hand with each other, so
Yeah, the earth
Okay.
is a subset of.
yeah, so we're covered.
All right, I guess we can leave it alone then. I have some minor edits on page 2, but I'll just give those to you, Betsy.
Okay.
Anyone else have anything on page 2?
Nope.
Page 3? I will say that the sentence at the end of the second paragraph, Adelot stated that more information would need to be provided. Did we get that additional information? Because I don't know how we can approve this without that additional information.
So it's correct.
I think that was in reference to when they find out what the site was going to require. Or maybe I'm misreading.
Well, it's further noted down
Yeah.
to, it's almost before the motion. It says to be submitted in accordance with section A3 of the limited site plan review, blasting schedule information on who will be conducting the blasting work and
Yep.
blasting plan. So that's the information that needs to be provided, them provided it.
Right. Right, so it's conditioned on getting that when the time comes.
So like the fact that in the third paragraph, it says Johnson stated that the map didn't make sense. And then the last sentence in that paragraph, the data needs to be provided and conditions to be included in the draft decision.
So these were truck trips, is that right? In other words, I think Al did this kind of back of the envelope calculation that may or may not have been correct.
Right, and I think what we were talking about, we're in a very iterative conversation because we can't exactly tell how much earth to be moved until we start to dig, so we need to be able to move forward to then give
Chicken
that
and egg.
information. Yeah. Maybe we'll find there's far less material and it's reusable on the site and then everyone will be happy.
And that's a recap of
But-
the discussion.
What about as part of the information that needs to be provided in those two sort of bulleted underlined paragraphs? What
Yeah.
if there was something in there about the expected number of trucks?
Couldn't that be
Size of
under,
trucks, 'cause
couldn't
it's-
that be under conditions where they have like, given this, and that, could we also say that, when materials have been calculated?
In fact, our conditions on page 8 cover a lot of the
Yeah, but they don't actually
issues
talk about.
about trucks. It doesn't
Right.
specify a number,
No.
because that number's going to be
Right.
something which
Except we've asked for the
will
number.
develop. But you can't, I mean,
But we could ask in the conditions.
Well, the
that-
blasting plan is gonna have information, so do we wanna say
Blasting
on
plan
the
including
bottom
number
of
of
page
trucks?
3, do we wanna say blasting plan including, size of truck?
Where are you adding this?
This part that's
So,
the bottom of page 3,
oh,
where it says, to be submitted
Mhm.
in accordance with condition A3 of the limited site plan approval, the one that was approved last fall.
okay.
So blasting plan including size of truck, number of trips.
Number of trips per day and total number of,
Isn't this all an
Trips.
estimate though? Because it's not a final calculation, so it almost has to be, in my opinion, a blasting plan, size of truck, and estimated
Right.
number of trips, because we can't give you the number of trips
right,
until the end. We can say we made X amount of trips.
right.
Right.
So I'd love it to say estimated.
Including
estimated number of.
estimated number of trips.
If you remember, we're looking at the area the part of it that was the discussion from the meeting. If your memory of it, mine is not clear, is that we talked about it in that
We talked
detail.
about 300 to 400 vehicle trips.
Right.
And
In
then
5 months.
potentially in 3 to 4 months, and that we could be talking on some days of
40,
a truck every 15 minutes.
which is 40 truckloads per day. So I think we would need the estimated number of trips per day and either the total number of trips or the total number of days, something like that.
Well, it sounds like we did do the estimate, the back of the envelope estimate.
Right, but that was just
But that was
estimating it in
just
the
an
meeting. That's not
estimate.
their more detailed estimate that's part of their plan.
We know the size of the spot, we don't actually know how much material is staying on site.
Right.
So
Because they don't know what the
it's sort of an
material is.
odd conversation to even have
Mhm.
in some ways, because we could be talking 300.
Right, but we were talking about this many things, and that's why when we get to our conditions, it talks about how we manage.
Which I'd like to talk when we get to conditions.
In the blasting plan, what I would also suggest that we add is use of crusher.
Wait, are we going back to the certificate of action now? Or are we? what's the
No,
blasting
wait a
plan?
minute, can we add, you know what, we should add this as a condition, that the blasting plan include this. So we should include it at the end, because it would be modifying a condition that's already existing.
I don't know what you're talking
Okay, the section on the bottom of page 3 that
Yeah.
says condition A3,
about.
this has to be provided. So it says blasting schedule, information on who will do the work, and blasting plan. Given that that's already a condition, we should probably just clarify at the end and say the blasting plan should include these items. The size of the truck, the estimated number of trips.
Right.
Okay, so we'll add that at the end.
When you say at the end of what?
At the end is a condition, just to
Okay.
clarify
Yeah, like,
that,
As a conditional page
yeah.
under the big conditions.
Okay. I mean, again, it's odd that some blasting stuff is here and some is
Yeah,
in the
agree.
certificate of action. It's all kind of jumbled, but as
that's-
David said, these
Well,
are going
I-
together.
I had a list that was gonna go into the special permit, and Al said, take these items, and I thought he was referring to both decisions.
Okay. Anything else on page 3? Page 4. Since no one else is speaking up, on the right below where it says March 18th, at the top of the page, it should be the above referenced public hearing, there was no sidewalk. So cross out sidewalk and, and then in paragraph A on that page, the third line, it says submission of conditions of approval conditions, so cross out the second conditions.
Wait, where are you?
Section 4,
A.
Part A.
Yeah, 4A, the third
Okay,
line.
Okay. Yeah,
Anyone else have anything on that page, or pages 5, 6, and 7? Okay, page 8.
Was we were gonna add something as condition 5, under B5. Is that right? Is this what you wanted, David?
Not me.
Oh, we talked about,
okay. There should be another condition that just specifies that the blasting plan will include, at a minimum, the size of the trucks, obviously the material, size of trucks, estimated trips a day, total trips a day, and a condition on if they have the material, suitable material, that they will be allowed to do rock crushing on the site. Because there was that whole discussion about, they had to have a certain quantity of material in order to have it be economically viable to put a rock crusher there.
Right.
So that should probably be the first condition, and then the others follow, since it happens first.
Okay.
I have a question about condition 1.
Mhm.
So my recollection of the conversation was that Erica brought up, oh, wouldn't a police detail be helpful? And then there was a little bit of ensuing back and forth. And she said, oh, the police detail would actually just help the commuters. What, we don't really even need a police detail, something like that. And I remember saying that I would like to understand why this project requires a police detail, but it didn't seem like that was something that you normally required of other projects.
In looking at about 10 to 12 special permits for earth movement or earth removal, there were a handful of them that did include police detail, and it was based on the anticipated quantities and the roads that they were going across.
So what would a police, may I ask questions, is this a conversation?
Yeah.
What does the
So-
police detail do for these trucks? Just allow them on and off of Lexington Street, or are they taking them? Like, I'm trying to understand.
Oh,
oh, it would just be to
It
stop
would just be
traffic.
at the
Stop
intersection.
No,
traffic
it's
so
a
they can
train,
get off
it's a long
safely.
train.
I mean, you're gonna
Commuters
have
don't figure 20
trips.
miles an hour. Stop the traffic, let the truck out.
Okay, I feel that that's, if we play this out, okay, that rock crushing or movement of materials is allowed between, I think I saw 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. or something like that.
There would be
This-
times during that
This
day
is
we would
so
need-
vague, I like that it's vague, but it's so vague, I'm not sure what you're asking of us
Yeah.
in this condition. And if you're asking of us to have a police detail on site for 3 to 4 months, I have a significant issue with that. If you were saying you're leaving to our interpretation of when is going to be a heavy load, I mean, I feel like it's different. This is coming out onto North Avenue or coming out onto South Avenue. I think that's different. This is coming onto Lexington Street, which is,
See, I think coming onto North Ave or South Ave would be actually easier from the site than coming onto Lexington Street when that, you know, when everybody's in there with 3 inches between them going 20 miles an hour over all those speed bumps, so. You don't agree?
I don't agree. And I think you've mentioned, I don't, because you lived on Lexington Street at one point, I think that there's a time period between 7 and 8 that's difficult, and I think there's a time period between, depending upon the train schedule, because the train schedule actually
Yep,
does
I
a lot
know.
to Lexington Street. That usually begins around 4:15. So the bulk of the day between the time that these trucks are probably being loaded and moved is actually not a busy time on Lexington Street at all.
Because when do they start? I mean, I consider Lexington busy from probably 7:15 till 9.
Do we want to say during peak hours?
I mean, that would be, but I understand what she's
I-
saying. You may find that after the first couple days, it's just a useless exercise.
Well, and I also think that, again, I'm not trying to question you, well, yes, again, but, you know, the trucks are gonna have to be loaded. So even if we're not gonna be, we're probably actually not even allow I don't want to even say anything out loud anymore, but we're gonna have our own conditions of when the work can be done because we are a school and we are residents. These trucks are not gonna be loaded and moving at 7 o'clock during that time. It's going to be, the bulk of the movement, in my opinion, is gonna probably be between like 9 and 3 or 4.
I don't know, construction starts pretty early.
She's talking about the school. and
The impact of students coming on. 'cause that's-
Look, we're not gonna let them
Yeah.
do this work while
Yeah.
our
I see
students are
what you're
coming and
saying.
going,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's, we have to manage our site anyway.
Right.
So I'm saying that this, what you are proposing is, I think, actually a waste of our resources in town, the time of the police, to stand there to let a truck out when there's not lines of cars there.
Well, I
Well,
guess the question is it possible to write something at the discretion of the planning board?
Well, this thing says, the board shall be provided with a copy of the final police detail plan once it is finalized with the police department. So by the time this happens, you know, we're saying you can present a detailed plan to us before you actually have to do it.
That wasn't the way.
And I mean,
read
you
it.
may,
No, you didn't read it
I
that
didn't
way?
read it that way.
I'm
read
reading it as
as
you gotta
You
tell
gotta
us.
do it, yeah. So, okay, let's put it this
so wait a
way.
minute,
If you, we don't have this, and it turns out there's a lot of problems that are unforeseen with trucks getting in and out, and that there are problems, what's our recourse at that point?
well, do you want to
It's
reserve
towns.
the right to require it if there are problems, but
Well, that,
basically encourage the applicant to explore with the police department doing a detail starting out, and then the planning board could mandate it if there are problems?
I agree with her that I think it's really a waste of their resources.
Yeah, I would agree too.
Yeah, but I don't like to give up, totally, like,
I'm not giving up on our right to
Right,
require it.
so-
I don't think, we're not saying that. I think the question is, are we saying at our discretion? And the
Right.
question is, what triggers our discretion?
right.
'Cause I can imagine
Okay.
1,000 things going on.
Right,
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Material falling off trucks,
Right.
going over
I can't
speed
even
bumps.
imagine, right, of the
Yeah.
speed bumps, right.
Yeah,
So I
and
can't
it's a
even
narrow
imagine.
street,
So,
and it's a busy street.
Can we, can we reword it somehow that it's not written in
I
stone?
agree with yours, the sense, and it's something where it's so.
How about-
It's onerous.
What if we say a police department detail may be required instead of shall be required?
I would still feel more comfortable with at the discretion of the planning board. The board reserves the right.
So wait a minute, so may be required
Then, just as a
at
as
the
a preamble to that.
discretion,
Right, but that they don't have to do anything right now.
Yeah, I mean.
They don't really have to do anything
Well,
right now.
that's
the other
question
If we
is-
get a big negative feedback on this.
but
Well, I
when,
don't-
wait a minute,
You're
when
gonna
they
hear
come
from the
back with
police
the
first.
blasting plan,
Right,
they're gonna have a schedule that
number of
says,
trucks.
we're on, from this period of time to this period of time, we're gonna be doing blasting, this is what we anticipating being generated out of the site. And so it may be like a 2-week period where they have intense trucking off of the site.
Right.
And then they have a lull for a while, and then they have another
Mhm.
round of intense trucking.
And I don't like to lock them into this.
Yeah.
big-
I like the may be
Right,
required.
that all, yeah,
then that's
one,
discretion.
you know, 1 or 2 phone calls to you, and then the planning board can say, we reserve this right to act.
Right.
I'm not
We
sure.
pour
I
on you.
I get I mean, one of the things is the assessment of the estimated amount of material at the site can inform us about whether or not we feel like it would be necessary to have a police detail.
Mhm.
So I think, just by saying
Yeah.
may, it strikes me as a little squishy.
But the
Well, we can't
volume
say
is-
shall if we're not all in
No, I'm
agreement.
not saying
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
saying,
saying
when
remove
is the
the
trigger?
shall.
What is the trigger? And is the trigger, in other words, if something happens, in other words? Or is the trigger something where we simply say, well, the estimated number of trucks suggests to
You-
us?
Right, what you're gonna probably find is, and again, if we're talking about peak hours, if
Mm-hmm.
we're impeding the school buses, or we're impeding
Yeah, you will
that,
self-adjust.
we're gonna know that, and you're gonna know that. I mean, I don't wanna say trust us, because you
Well,
don't need to.
You've
but
earned some trust. Obviously, the community
Yes.
trusts, so.
They do.
And it's
And I
also
think
in
we're-
your
some of the-
interest, because if there's an accident that's caused by it, it's your liability insurance that's impacted.
And I'm not, I think
So,
for me, the issue I have is being mandated to do it for, which seems to be
On
such.
us.
Absolutely agree with you on
Okay.
All right,
So at the discretion of the planning board, something like at the discretion of the planning
Well-
board, a police detail may be.
Yes.
We
We can
change
just-
shall to maybe,
Yeah, a police,
and at the end, we say the planning board reserves the discretion
Yeah.
of imposing.
well, why can't we just say a police department detail may be required at the board's discretion? And then, we have to change that last sentence.
yeah, that's pretty open-ended, don't you think? Yeah, okay, simple.
But
Well, we
that,
just
but that
lose-
last, but
we
that
can
last
lose that
sentence we have
last
to
sentence.
change.
Yeah, I feel comfortable the police detail may be required.
Yeah, end of story. Yeah.
Because it sounds like we are maybe all,
So you want the last sentence cut?
I don't know.
That's what I think.
So last sentence,
The board shall be provided with a copy of the final,
So in the event a police detail is required,
right, that's fine, in the
Yeah,
event.
okay.
Yeah.
Right, right. Okay, can we vote on this so that I know
No,
the ladies' room?
we're not ready. Or do you want to go in for that?
Need to stand up. I'm just sitting.
So this isn't substantial, so I think we can discuss it without Sue here. Number 2,
Mhm.
that's Winter Street, not Totten
Yeah.
Pond Road.
it's West Winter.
okay.
Well, no, West Street.
It's
is-
Lexington into West onto
Correct.
Winter. Yeah.
West Winter?
No, it's
No, 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 no.
Lexington Street to West,
West.
which becomes West
To
Street.
Winter Street.
Lexington Street becomes West Street and Waltham, and then to Winter Street. But I think you could just say Lexington to Winter, and everyone will know what that means.
Yes.
Okay,
And then, on the next one, this is something that Diana had actually said at the other meeting, you know, would there be a way for trucks leaving Weston full and then coming back empty, be bringing in material?
But then Jerry said, you know, it's gonna be all in the timing. And
Right.
certainly we can put something in there that says, we encourage, as trucks leave, that trucks return and preferably not empty or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, trucks entering and exiting the site should be full whenever possible. Yeah, something like
Are you
that.
gonna be bringing much stuff in?
Probably
They don't
not,
know.
they don't know. So if we have to truck off all the material and bring in suitable material, then yes, but the timing isn't gonna work because they're not gonna need the small crushed stone until
It's
we're
all
gonna.
off.
So it's not.
It's
fun-
either
it's
going
not
to work
functional.
well for us or it's not.
Yes.
I mean, we're really hoping to be able to reuse the material inside.
And it's less expensive,
Yeah.
because you're paying for the truck traffic,
That's right.
you know, mileage anyway. I have to go back to page 3, where it says in accordance with condition A3, that was limited site plan review. I don't think we have an
Wait a minute, what page are
Good point.
A on page 3.
Yeah, you're right.
It references condition A3 of the limited site plan review.
No, limited.
No, A3 of the limited site plan review was the one that was approved last fall that had conditions.
Well, then you better say that it was approved. So it's not the one we approved
So
today.
the limited site plan review voted, approved on,
Yep. That's clear.
yeah.
Right.
Wait a minute. Hang on.
Yeah. Good catch, David.
So wait a minute, that was,
Anybody else see anything?
that was the one
It's
approved
exciting.
October
Yeah.
1, 2014.
Scintillating television.
Yeah.
October what?
October 1, 2014.
I do watch it. I watched it last night.
Outside.
I want to see what it
As a review.
Back to page 8.
Okay. So you'll add some sort of wording about trucks not being empty or being as full as possible
Right,
in
right.
in item number
And
3.
maybe something that says the board understands this is a timing issue when,
Yeah.
but where at all possible.
I don't see it necessary, but.
Okay.
I don't think it's necessary.
All right.
So my question, that's again, on condition 4 is, so is that something, so in conjunction with the Public Works, they'll come out, they'll photograph the road prior to our work,
Yes,
and then they'll photograph it again?
Yeah,
baseline.
Okay.
and this is something that has been requested by the town engineer and the DPW director, and it is being included in.
That seems fair, as long as it's like,
It's
we
in
can-
the letter,
yeah.
too.
it's done in conjunction.
Yeah.
It's in the next one, we have to read it.
I,
So the other thing in talking with DPW is if there are trucks that are overloaded, apparently they're gonna have a real problem on the speed bumps.
okay,
So one of the things that I spoke with Steve Bogg about was that, and I don't know how this would work exactly, but if you wanted to give your trucks a kind of fighting chance, you could remove the 2 northern speed bumps, so that they would have a better time of it, and then
Okay.
replace. So it's something to talk about
Okay.
with Jerry and.
Those aren't the worst speed bumps.
The
one's
worst
one
2 are
close-
the first and second one.
The one
Yeah.
closest to 117.
yeah, that one, it depends which car I'm in.
Airborne. So,
That would be probably a neighborhood
right,
not so happy thing.
Yeah, I would think they'd be very upset.
right.
Well, then you have to put it back.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they wouldn't put them back for a couple of months, so boy, it'd be some,
that traffic through that road is so.
it's, yeah, and speed bumps
So-
really made it nice.
Going back to number 3, Roy and David don't think we need to add anything about trucks not being empty or
Correct.
being full whenever possible, so we just forget that.
Okay.
Or does anyone else have any changes?
I just have one question, and maybe
Mhm.
other people understand this. To whom are the tear slips provided, or are they just retained?
You can, if you have a collection of them, you can just provide me copies.
Okay, so they come to the
Yeah.
planning board, got it, okay.
Then we should say shall be provided to the planning board. That's what you mean.
Right.
All right, I just didn't know to whom. Yeah.
Yep. Point. Anything else? Someone like to make a motion?
I would like to move that we approve the certificate of action special permit for earth movement pertaining to School of Weston with everything we've talked about.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you all.
I think we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, night.
I know, this is later than I thought.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
But you don't have everybody else here, so that's good, right?
True.
Right.
No, it's lonely.
The whole
We like
world
it
is
when there's
there.
misery. We can
On the
Yeah.
internet.
Pardon?
The whole world is
Let's
there on the
do,
internet.